as well champion a new way forward. And we do know that here on the Urban Parliament, your views count as far as it's founded in truth and also stated in civility as well. A lot has been happening in the polity, especially in international polity, and this is something that we intend to look at in today's session of the Urban Parliament. So I gladly welcome you all to the Tuesday session of the Urban Parliament. Today we'll be looking at an interesting development happening outside of Nigeria, and that's looking at the US-Israel airstrikes against Iran, its implication on Nigeria. Okay, we do know that issues such as this really affect countries around us, and today we intend to look at it this morning. We do know that last week, Friday, that was February 27th, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated series of airstrikes under Operation Epic Fury or Lion's Roar against targets inside the Islamic Republic of Iran, marking one of the most dramatic escalations in the long running tensions between Iran, US, and Israel. Such as strikes reportedly resulted in the death of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and all their senior officials. We do know that the operation described by the US officials as a major combat offensive and by Israeli leaders as a decisive preemptive strike involved hundreds of military targets across Iranian territory, including missile bases, command centers, and other strategic facilities. The campaign rapidly expanded into a wider regional conflict as Iran has responded with missile and drone attacks against Israel and US military sites across the Middle East, drawing multiple countries and as well heightening global geopolitical instability. The US and Israel justified the air campaign primarily on the grounds of security. Both governments accused Iran of posing imminent threats through its nuclear program, ballistic missile development, and support for armed proxy groups throughout the region. That is the justification coming from US and Israel as to the reason why they carried out that airstrike. They purported that Iran is developing a nuclear weapon that may be used to destroy US or US allies as well. The United States had framed its participation as necessary to defend American interests and allies, to dismantle key elements of Iran's military capabilities, and as well prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. That's the stance of the United States, and Israel, on the other hand, stressed that severe action was needed to neutralize what is characterized as an unacceptable existential threat resulting from Iran's long range missiles and hostile regional activities. Narrowing it down to Nigeria and Africa at large, you see that these developments have stirred global concern over a wider regional war, disrupted international travel corridors, and driven volatility in global energy markets. We do know that these airstrikes and counter airstrikes in the Middle East has led to suspension of shipments by oil firms from the Strait of Hormuz, controlled by Iran, which we do know accounts to for about 20% of global oil supply. And we do know that it is a vital channel for oil exploration, that is the Strait of Hormuz, that is controlled by Iran. For countries far beyond the Middle East, including Nigeria particularly, the implication of this ongoing war in the Middle East extends beyond distant battlefields, from macroeconomic pressures through oil price fluctuations and exchange rate volatility to security adversaries and travel disruptions for Nigerians and Gulf states, as well as broader geopolitical and humanitarian concerns. Earlier, the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission NIDCOM has come out to talk about what is going on in the Middle East and saying that it is yet to receive any distress call from Nigerians residing in Iran following the ongoing hostilities between Iran and the United States and its ally Israel. This statement was put out a day before the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs said it is still monitoring the situation in the Middle East. It says that even as a dozen of protesters marching around the Maryland area of Lagos yesterday chanted anti-US and anti-Israel slogans that called for global condemnation of the foreign intervention in sovereign nations. And then the presence of demonstrators heightened tensions as passers-by avoided the area. We do know that there was a protest that began on Sunday and as yesterday as well from Shite, and they protested against the attack and the killing of the Iran supreme leader. We saw that protest happen in Kano, Sokoto, Gombe, Niger, Kaduna, Bauchi, and Yobe states as well. Lagos state as well. We saw that protest also happen yesterday in Lagos state. Also looking at how this would affect the energy markets, we saw that what is happening in the Middle East has somewhat spread to some other nations. We saw that yesterday, Lebanon-based Hezbollah entering the fray, targeting a British air base in Cyprus as price of Nigeria's Bonny Light surged to $80 per barrel. That was yesterday, and that was from $70 per barrel on Sunday, the highest since July of 2025. Now, the Director of Media and Public Relations of NEEDCOM, Abdul Rahman Balogun, who disclosed a news of no distress call in a telephone interview with newsmen, said though there might be Nigerians in Iran, none had officially reached out to the Commission for assistance. Says, and I quote, "I'm not saying that there are no Nigerians there. I am only saying nobody has sent any distress call." Clarified and then explained that flight cancellations to the region are due to ongoing hostilities, stressing that no airline will operate in an active war zone. That statement also clarified that there may be ceasefire for 2 or 3 days to allow people who are stranded at the airport to be evacuated. That has not been done. That is a statement coming from NEEDCOM at this time.
I can come in if you want. I said I can come in if you want.
Can we try video?
Huh?
Can we try come in?
Is it? It's really perilous times for Nigeria, looking at what's happening in the Middle East and its implications for the country. At a time when Nigeria needs all the boost it can get economically, people are skeptical about what the future holds, given this escalating conflict between the United States, Israel, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Historically, there's been that knowledge that oil markets are sensitive to conflicts in the Middle East. During the Gulf War between 1990 and 1991, Brent crude prices doubled from about $15 per barrel in July of 1990 to over $40 per barrel by October, after Iraq invaded Kuwait. And by contrast, during the 2003 Iraq War, prices experienced a similar a smaller pre-war spike before stabilizing once supplies fears erased. All right, and then since January, when signals of possible US-Iran confrontation intensified, oil markets have experienced noticeable volatility. So experts have been weighing into it and trying to predict what this means for Nigeria in terms of prices of goods and services, inflation, and all whatnot. They see an empowerment research center, SEREC, says that inflation could rise by 3 to 5% in Nigeria amid this ongoing conflict between the United States and Iran. According to their head researcher, he said that Nigeria's headline inflation, which eased slightly to 15.1% in January, down from 15.15% in December, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, could rise again. And he particularly expressed concern on the vulnerability of the Strait of Hormuz, an important waterway between Iran and Oman, through which approximately one-fifth of global crude oil supply transits daily. And everybody who's been talking about this has always mentioned that Strait of Hormuz, on whether or not Iran would try to cause a blockade around that particular area. It supplies a lot to the world. Like I said, 20%. China gets a lot of crude from the Strait of Hormuz. The rest of Asia also gets a lot from the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Foreign Minister Sayed Agachi warned that the attacks by the US and Israel on Iran and the assassination of their supreme leader Ali Khamenei will have deep and widespread consequences. There's a new guy who has also emerged, who says that time for negotiations between Iran and the US has passed, right? And it shows that we're not seeing a de-escalation of this war anytime soon, as of today, right? As of today, because they've gone ahead to bomb the U.S. embassy in Saudi Arabia, which of course we know that the POTUS, Donald Trump, would not take that lightly. So every pointer is leading to a further escalation of this particular crisis. It might mean some money, extra money for Nigeria as a nation, but then petrol prices, a lot of experts believe, will continue to spike. As we have seen, Dangote refinery has reacted to what's happening between the US and Iran. So yeah, Nigerian macroeconomic impact. It said that the Brent crude trading above Nigeria's 2026 budget benchmark of 64.85 barrels per day is higher prices could boost export earnings for the country. It could strengthen foreign reserves, which already are being said to be about $50 billion as at this point, and it can increase inflows into the Federation account. But however, the benefits may be offset by structural realities, right? Despite being Africa's largest oil producer, Nigeria still imports a portion of its refined petroleum products, and the only refinery that we have really working right now is the Dangote refinery. If we had a state refinery working, maybe the outcomes would have been different.
And then talking about the Dangote refinery, we see that currently, right now, the Dangote refinery gets about 18 million barrels of crude oil monthly. And out of that 18 million barrels, about 12 million is being imported, while it gets about 5.7 million barrels, that is about 6 cargoes, from the NNPCL. And so if this war is going on in the Middle East based on this oil price, it means that not just that our oil will increase, that's talking about the prices, but every other thing, because there will be increase in local supply of fuel, and also every other thing, local fuel prices and supply as well. And we do know that anything that happens to our fuel trickles down to every other services that has been rendered. We know that there's increase in price of fuel, all other things comes in our goods and services. And this morning, I think you read this morning that Dangote refinery would be able to increase the price of fuel to 1,000 naira per liter, and we do know how that can affect us. Talking about the international market and Nigeria's oil, we see that it's about 78.87. That's feeling the report coming from the Brent and West Texas intermediate, saying that it has climbed to $78, while and also 71.84 per barrel as of filling the report, and then 72.87 and 67.02 as at Saturday, based on what is happening. So it means that the benchmark of this well could reach to about 90 per dollar. Anyways, this morning, this is what we intend to look at right now. We intend to dissect this and critically see how this would affect us as Nigerians, as Africans as well. This morning, we're being joined by our guest as a public affairs analyst and a public health physician in the person of Dr. Chikezie Obasi. Good morning, Dr. Obasi.
Good morning, Chama. Good morning,
sir.
Good morning, Agazi. Good morning, our listeners.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obasi, for joining us. You see what is playing out in the Middle East, and we'd like to get your overview of this, what I would term geopolitical tension in the Middle East. Let's get your overview of it.
I think there are two or three sides to this case. First is America playing interest of trying to be, policeman of the world, trying to control the world and not accepting that multipolarity or multiple order would be in place. And that's why you see the threats going across nations that they feel would are not really doing well, in trying to maintain American hegemony. That's what you saw that happened to Venezuela, the threat you see to South Africa, the threat you see to Nigeria,
even Greenland,
and Greenland, and so on. So America is trying to maintain its financial, hegemonic powers, and is getting slipping by every day. One of the radio stations here, I said, one of the programs, I said, for every attempt, to reset, to get back to war, the unipolar world order, is an attempt for America to make mistakes.
Okay.
And until America understands that, it will continue to slide. And that's number one. Number two, Trump is trying as much as he could to, divert attention from a peace fire.
Divert attention.
Yes, he's having a whole lot of issues. His rating in America is low. The peace file is worsening it. So you think if he tries to get a whole lot, in terms of war, when these leaders want to, defer issues or try to change people's mind or put other things, they go to war. It is common, So this is not an unusual case. And the third one is the Israeli interest. Israel is fighting an existential fight. They feel the, the, the Iran stands in the gap of their existence and dominating, the Arab nation. Minus Iran, you discover that Israel had actually been the determinant factor in the Arab world, in the sense that to a great extent, Israel controls what happens in, or has a lot of influence, let me not say control, has a lot of influence what happens in Washington, D.C. And you see, Washington, D.C. has a whole lot of interest, ranging from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Doha, Oman, Bahrain, Egypt, and so on. So it becomes a whole lot of issues. The current regime they had or they have in Iran is, in fact, Ayatollah Khomeini called Israel small Satan, and yes, called Israel small Satan, and they actually threatened the existentiality of Israel. Before 1979, for many of us who may not understand, Israel was actually having a whole lot of, good relationship, especially when Shah Pahlavi was the president. They had some democratic American-style leadership. But by 1979, when the IRGC actually took over, that's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Commanders took over, it became a different ballgame altogether. That relationship was a good relationship, was such a good relationship that Iran and Israel were having spies, they were having military, exchanges, they were having business ties, but it has gotten to the point where we are today. This particular war, many of us had actually predicted that America wouldn't go to this war. We didn't predict that they don't have the powers to shoot, but we knew clearly that it would be difficult for America to just navigate through the war and go just on, scotch-free. Now the war has went off the table, the timetable. The idea was to do what they did in Venezuela, and then equally try as much as they've been doing even to Hamas and Hezbollah, where you exterminate the leadership of a country. So it was like a trick, to get Oman to mediate into the issue of crisis between America and Iran. And then in the middle of that negotiation, we expected to go back and talk about reaching a truce. This strike came on and took away 48 other commanders of IRGC. One would have actually expected this war to have ended, abruptly, because we take away people of that nature. But again, it actually opened up another casket because the Ayatollah Khomeini, if you listen to him last week, had been a man, 86-year-old man, who suddenly was begging, to be martyred. And unfortunately, the airstrike that took him away martyred him, unfortunately. Because if you see what happened in Iran, people that we are some weeks ago chanting that the leadership should leave the country suddenly turned out, to ask the leaders, the people in government to revenge for killing their leaders. And I watched one of the Iranian television. They got on not one, two, three, or four of them. You see different OAPs cry, on the state media, and that was actually trying to evoke a whole lot. And they did that because in a swift reaction, they had that leadership style of Iran, which has evolved over time, actually showed resilience. They configured and then brought about a new set of command arrangement, which that the command now is no longer stationed or centralized to one person. If you saw, they decentralized their command, and in a quick succession, they had to get some interim leadership, and then they now saw the rockets, the missiles firing up, and then we saw the hands of ISO, because if we really understand clearly what transpired between Iran and Israel in I think June last year, if we understand that this is a more definite military strike. But you can see that Iran has become more resilient. Iran has been toughened, and the precision with which they are striking flying drones and then getting their way, it's something has overwhelmed both the United States and its allies. I listened to Peter Z yesterday. You could see, a furious person. You could see somebody that is finding it difficult to walk through the streets because the arrangement, what they felt, was that when you decapitate the leadership, people will troop to the streets, rejoice, jubilate, and then call for regime change. Remember when the demonstration was going on, Trump, if I should paraphrase, Trump to a reasonable extent said that the people demonstrating in Iran should continue, that help was on the way. So I felt they calculated that since they were able to jam Starlink, that was giving them that information, that maybe if they eliminate the IRGC's commanders, they will be able to they'll be able to activate the populace, to troop to the street, and that would have made the regime succession easier. And for some of us who actually understand clearly, the son of Shah Pahlavi, which was the prince, yes, was actually being prepared, even when the guy hadn't, stepped into Iran for many years, and knew quite a little. But about 3-4 months ago, he was being propped up. He was taken to Trump. Trump initially didn't endorse him, but more recently we saw him making public appearances, trying to pray, So I felt that the plan was maybe 2-3 day war, probably at most a week, decapitate them, make people, rise against the leadership, and then try to make a leadership change. But the script has changed, unfortunately. The script has completely changed. We've seen the military geolocations of America being on the streets or everywhere on the internet. And we can understand clearly the precision with which Iranians are striking America. And we've equally seen the condemnation from Russia. We've seen the condemnation from China and North Korea. And North Korea is trying to say that they are going to offer assistance. Remember that missiles have been produced. There's exchange of military intelligence between North Korea and Iran.
Okay.
And Iran. So it's an interesting war. You can see the West that tried to pull out. We saw President Trump saying the other day that Iran has been asking for negotiation. And then quickly the IRGC commander spokesman said they are not interested. They called them bluff. So the plan was initially exterminate the leaders, but the two people would turn to the streets. Italy or any other of these nations will mediate, and then find a lasting, palatable ground. Now, the issue of um, getting a military, what's it called, the Iranian nuclear weapon.
Weapon, yes.
I mean,
I was coming to that because the US claimed that they are trying to prevent Iran from development of nuclear weapon. But some would ask, is it just that, or is it about the clerical leadership in Iran that resulted to this coordinated airstrikes?
no, the truth of the matter is that, you see, the issue of that one is a belated argument. Remember that when America, in conflicts, there's what we call PIN agreements, onion ball PIN,
Okay.
where people get to understand the public perception. You look at what people are shouting, that's what they want, and then you look at the needs, and then you look at the interest, and then the needs. The needs is a hardcore area of the onion ball. It is the main thing that they wanted. The issue that being sold to people that it is nuclear weapon, have you forgotten that nuclear weapon was sold to the world, as the reason why America struck Iran in June last year, and Trump, made allusion to the fact that they've obliterated the nuclear capacity of Iran. When he said he was trying to tell the whole world why B-52 bomber could be in America, in Iran. And he Trump that they've obliterated it and that nothing will make them again. So how did they now, come up with another argument of Iranian nuclear weapon in just 8 months? Something you have obliterated 8 months ago. So who was not telling the world the truth? Was it the fact that we are not doing? And if we look at it critically and remember what happened to Saddam Hussein, we understand clearly that Saddam Hussein was the same nuclear weapon acquisition was being trumped up against Saddam Hussein. But for some of us who understand the need, that's the need, core need there, is to maintain American hegemony. That's all. There's nothing else. When the issue of Venezuela came on board, some of us came here was saying, look, forget the whole story about Maduro. The issue was that America is seeing Venezuela supplying oil to China. And China is a rival, to the whole of this. Today I can tell you, China gets close to 2 to 3 million barrels of oil from Iran. Iran is the most sanctioned nation in the world. For about 49 years now, Iran has been under sanction. So you cannot understand how a set of people that are, the man that has been sanctioned still is waxing strong, producing ballistic missiles, producing all this. It simply means they've actually found another economy outside of America. And that's what America is trying to break. America wants you to do the business through America. And that's all the whole thing you are looking at. Is just to maintain that dollar. And that is the dollar that actually led to the death of Muammar Gaddafi. The same dollar led to the death of Saddam Hussein. So what they felt was, if we're able to exterminate the leadership, we can now come together, see a friendly regime that will now say no to our rival China and Russia in terms of business.
Okay.
But they unfortunately, like other mistakes they've always made, it's always to the benefit of China. If you look at what has played out today, I mean, it's as if China predicted this. China has over 1 billion barrels of oil reserves. That even in the next thing, I don't know how many years it will take China to go off. And China only receives, 5% of its daily crude from Arab world. So you can see clearly that even they need about 15 million barrels per day, to keep up their country going. So if you take away that 5%, which is roughly insignificant to them, 5 million barrels, not 5%, they can still go on with the other areas. So China was well ahead. But more importantly, you could equally see that the company that actually had been showcasing all the geolocation America, American military might in the whole of Middle East, is a Chinese company. Showing China is trying to show something very clear. That look, we are not involved in this war, but remember that wherever you are stationed, we are seeing you. We don't need you to give us their permission to use your internet services. So they are using another internet services, to view the world. And it's a very strategic issue. They are showing their strength, and the way these ballistic missiles have been firing and crossing, defense systems It's surprising to many of us, including someone like me. When the issue of Berlin was hit, I was like, how did it happen? You know,
Alright.
it's so it's something that I think the West needed to see how to de-escalate the war and then get back to the table, and then like calibrate their brain that you can't continue bullying the world. The world has come to an age where people should discuss as equals on the table.
All right, and this geopolitical tension, let's bring it down to Nigeria. And how does it impact us economically? I mean, this morning we heard that Dangote Refinery is saying that they're proposing that the fuel would increase to 1,000 naira per liter. And then with what is going on, we're seeing that the barrel would go to about $90 per barrel. So what is the economic implication of this to us here in Nigeria?
Um, Strait of Hormuz is almost under blockade. I think about 2 ships have been sunk. You know, and you see the insurance companies have refused insuring a lot of ships. And
Yeah, Iran has suspended shipments from them.
yes, and even we saw Saudi's oil company had been closed, and some other.
Yes, yes, true.
So we are going to see a tough battle with oil over the next few months. Now, what's the problem here? The problem is Nigeria has got a mixed. For us, we have got a mixed feeling to this. First feeling is that our oil bench. I think we have $68 per barrel.
64.
64, right? Now we have actually surpassed that, so we are getting some surplus amount of money per day because of the reduction in the number of oil being shipped by this Arab world. Nigeria can ramp up production scale and scale up production, so as much as maybe 3 to 4 million barrels if you have the capacity, but which I'm doubt Nigeria can.
Be falling short of OPEX.
Yes, yes, to make it. So it's a positive for Nigeria in that regards. But there's another very big striking negative, and that is the fact that we're no longer operating a subsidy regime. So the Nigerians, the ordinary person on the street is hard hit by the fluctuation in oil price. Now, Dangote buys his oil on international benchmark. So if it goes up, he's going to buy at a higher price. If it goes down, he's going to buy at a lower price. And we expect that to fluctuate when it comes to the liters. They predicted that if the war continues, if the oil reaches about $100, $120, petrol price may get as much as a liter of petrol, PMS, may get to as much as 1,200 naira per liter. And that is going to be a difficult one for us. Now, the gain which this administration had actually done was getting the money and putting it into giving the excess amount to the governors, which we have seen that hadn't worked, because if you remember, when subsidy was removed, we were told that all the money is accruable, from subsidy was handed over and shared among the 3 tiers of government. But Nigerians are still suffering. So the big problem here now is how do you, the gains you're going to make by sale of this oil, how does it translate to the, cushioning the difficulties the ordinary man on the street will have? And what law are you going to use? Actually, the federal government taking it, because if you remember, oil proceeds under federation accounts. So it says it's supposed to be shared, under a good agreement between the state, federal government, and the
and then
government.
we see that the government has asked the NNPCL to remit all the monies
Yes,
directly to
yes,
the
yes.
account.
So the big question is, how would Nigerians, get this? How would federal government mitigate the crisis that maybe is coming up? Yes, you're going to get money. Our foreign reserve is going to swell up, but would that translate, to tangible, immediate tangible relief for the ordinary man on the street? I doubt if it's going to happen.
That's a big question.
That's a very big question, because the only way you could do that under petroleum to stabilize the petroleum price is either you increase worker salary, which will increase inflation, or you find a way of getting back to subsidy, which is not permitted by the law. So it's a very difficult, dicey situation for anybody in Nigeria, as a Nigerian president. But I guess, again, you remember that you have even gas issue from Arab countries moving to Europe. And then if this war is not quickly ramped up, maybe that becomes another opportunity for Nigeria to get as much money as possible. But it's quite difficult, a challenging time, seeing how we can wrap up if oil prices go up, and Dangote jacks petroleum up, Of course, you can't even say it's going to be more difficult because even to refine oil it becomes difficult for even international community.
Inflationary pressures
Yes,
as well.
so it's going to be a difficult one, and we are saying this, believing that the war doesn't escalate beyond what it is today, because I think yesterday we saw um, we saw ballistic missile, hit UK military base in Cyprus.
Yes.
So it's expanding. It's expanding as the day goes by. So we expect that somewhat it doesn't really have effect on us, but I'm afraid it may if the war goes beyond some few more days.
Now you talked about okay, go ahead.
No problem. I was just going to add to what he had already said, right? We've talked about Dangote buying crude oil at the international rates. If Nigeria had the capacity to produce more than enough crude and could supply Dangote at the benchmark that they are already made for the 2026 budgets, could Nigeria have escaped this, increase in petroleum product prices that we are anticipating at this moment in time? Because Nigeria has constantly fallen short of the OPEC quota. Dangote is not getting all this crude from Nigeria, like importing a lot from international community. Is this an indictment on Nigeria in terms of crude oil production capacity?
Yeah, like I said, Nigeria would have. Remember, there are two dynamics here. The first dynamic is the oil we use in Nigeria can increase. Can the price might increase. But if you ramp up your production, assuming if you needed to supply 3 million barrels from less than 2 million you're supplying currently, and you have extra 1 million barrels of oil, that could actually buffer the economy from other sectors. Now, if you're unable to ramp up, it means that you're just benefiting from the increase in the quantity you are producing. Now, that quantity you are producing is subject to OPEC price. Even if you're going to sell to NNPC, you're going to still sell to NNPC at OPEC price. Because remember when
you can't do anything to protect your own country.
No, when you produce oil, let's say it's 1 million barrels, the OPEC will know it's 1 million barrels because you signed to that deal. Now, if you say we are going to use 500 for you only sell 500 to the international community. So if you decide to give it to Dangote free, it simply means you are subsidizing the oil.
No, I mean, if we met our OPEC quota and then there is excess.
No, they will not allow you to. You won't sell it.
You cannot give the excess to the
no, that becomes an issue.
Country.
That becomes an issue
because of the law.
Because of you are part of OPEC.
Even though you've met the capacity.
Yes, you can. If you allow everybody to do that, somebody can ramp up and say, okay, let me just produce and make myself happy, and then produce for the world. So if everybody begins to produce that way, it simply means they can stabilize the prices. So it's a difficult one. Remember, petroleum is not PMS or diesel. It's not the only thing you get out of crude oil. In fact, byproducts is more important than even the PMS. Remember, even when we are going green, robotics and so on, many of those things we are seeing in robotics actually rely on byproducts of plastics. If Chivana Rabe was here, he would have told you how a lot of things you can do with byproduct of plastic. Some companies today are trying to do even the framing of a vehicle using plastic. So plastic is coming into, petroleum is getting more and more interesting and then being diversely used. So, but for me, it requires a good head to settle down. Now that we are going to go into, politics, government has to be, smart, so that people shouldn't feel the pangs and pains economically of what is happening in faraway Middle East.
And going away from the economic implication of this, we also look at the religious implication of this. I mean, yesterday we saw Nigerian Shiites protesting in solidarity, condemning the killing of the Iran leader. And somewhat, we know how these issues come about. Looking at the religious reprisal of this and probably turning into killing, showing that they're showing their own solidarity here in Nigeria. We'll look at that when we return from our news break. Do stay with us. Good morning and welcome to Urban Radio News Update in 94.5 seconds. I am Choma Omasonda. The Enugu state government has announced a 90-day amnesty period for property owners without approved building plans to regularize their structures as part of efforts to strengthen urban planning and regulatory compliance. Benue state government has said it has commenced the resettlement of victims of the June 2025 Yelwata attacks. A wave of resignations has swept through the administration of Edo State Governor Monday Okpebholo following a directive requiring political appointees seeking elective office in 2027 to step down. Adamu Abubakar, the first son of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, has resigned his position as the Commissioner for Works and Energy Development in Adamawa State. Dangote Refinery has announced a 75 naira increase in the premium motor spirit gantry price from 799 naira to 879 naira per liter. In sport, Niger Tornadoes FC have handed a 3-match ultimatum to their technical crew, led by Manji Mohammed, following a run of poor results in Nigeria Premier Football League and PFL. On entertainment, Grammy-winning artist Wizkid has been officially named the highest-selling African artist on Chartmaster's global all-time list, with 13.18 million equivalent album sales recorded worldwide. You're up to the minute in 94.5 seconds. I am Choma Omasomba. To 94.5 Urban Radio Enugu State, we are looking at what's going on in the Middle East and how it may affect us here in Nigeria. We still have Dr. Chikezi Obasi, who has dissected this particular issue. Now we'll take this issue towards the religious implication of it. Dr. Obasi, before we went for the news break, I was getting at something. And we do know that issues such as this may be termed as a religious war based on Israel and Iran. And like I mentioned, that yesterday we saw the Southwest leadership of the Islamic movement in Nigeria staging a peaceful protest in Lagos and some other states in Nigeria denouncing the killing of Iran's supreme leader. And we do know that there may be fears of increased hostilities that may somewhat radicalize to terror funding that could trickle into parts of Nigeria as well. We see that Iran is bombing, carrying out airstrikes on U.S. allies, and we do know that Africa and Nigeria may not be left out in this. You of this going down here?
That there's a wrong calculation, trying to matter at a lot of men during the Ramadan. That's a wrong one. Because if there was one prayer the 86-year-old man prayed for, it was exactly what he prayed for. From the reports I saw, he had been asked all this while to get to the basement of the bunker basement of his building, and he has refused doing that. So he was anticipating them to kill him, successfully did that.
I was already naming
successors. So the man had written his will.
He foresaw that.
And they killed him during Ramadan, and they killed him and left his corpses. So they produced a matter. That's unfortunate. And you expect, like in every other cult group. Remember, cult in put here, religion is a cult group, whether it's Christianity, Islam, anything. In any cult group, once you kill their leader, the members of the cult are going to react. We saw that in Mexico right now. We had the cartel, a cult group that hawk drugs in Mexico that literally chased away the president of Mexico from the seat of government. So we expect them to react, and that we have seen across the globe. We've seen that happen in Pakistan. We've seen it in other countries. So the demonstration we saw in Nigeria is in line to that. But I'm not expecting such demonstration to be an increase. I'm not expecting to see people, going on to damage properties. And I'm not expecting the world to get to this part of the world. Honestly speaking, Iran is not that financially sophisticated as I speak, to sponsor any of those. And I can't point any country in the world that has that kind of financial muscle, to allow to share money that will aggregate people into, carrying out, violent demonstrations. I'm not seeing that. The ex-Zaki, when he was active and his men, tried to do a lot of things. They had support from Iran, the Shiite movement. Though they are small in Nigeria, remember, they are very small in Nigeria. When he had the support, we could see clearly how Nigerian security operatives dealt with them. And that is still a lesson, is still in the playbook of every, Shiite member in Nigeria. So I don't think they're going to demonstrate so much. They would overwhelm the Sunnis, who are incidentally of majority of the Muslims in Nigeria. So I expect to see demonstrations. I expect them to write. I expect them to go online, causing the US, but I'm not expecting probably beyond that for now.
Okay, are you also wary that the MIDCOM has come out to say that Nigerians and Iran has not made any comment as to probably talking about evacuating Nigerians that are in
No,
Iran?
Nigerians are actually told them, not only in Iran, every Nigerian in the Middle East, if you really watch the kind of bombings, flying yesterday, both in Saudi Arabia, you could see Nigerians who are like, you can see what is happening. Speaking in Igbo, it was close. But there's nothing Nigeria could do other than to give that one an attack and then ask them to keep listening to the embassy. You can't evacuate all air flights, in the Middle East. Suspended. They should actually be, so you can't do anything other than give them hope, give them support, and then if the tension reduces, you can put in your planes to evacuate your people.
Okay, and then what is playing out at this moment, and even what is going on in Europe, talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, and even before this started, we saw the issue between Israel and Hamas, that's the Palestinian enclave, and with this that is going on in the Middle East now, do you foresee a third world war in that, something of this nature happened during the First World War of 1914 to 1918 and the Second World War of 1939 to 1945? So with what is playing out right now around the world, and seeing the US president trying to sort of assert his authoritarian sort of leadership in the world, do you foresee that happening?
No, I don't. Everybody knows that all of us have a weapon of mass destruction. The America has the largest number of stockpile of nuclear weapon in the world.
Okay.
Russia is second, and then followed by China. But so many other countries have gotten that, and each of those countries has the capacity to wipe away the world. That's the truth. And if you try to open up war, multiple fronts, the world will go down. That's I can assure you that. Another layer to it is in the last military parade we saw China, parading a weapon that has a hydrogen bomb, which clearly we know that we don't know if there's any other country apart from China that has it. So you can't lead to that. And again, those that are playing the chess, it's a chess that people are playing. The two superpowers, I mean the China and the Russia, are not ready to confront each other, in the battlefield.
Okay.
So this is a proxy war, and you could see that what you should be praying as Nigeria and other countries of concern Nigeria has always maintained neutrality when it comes to this. So you keep on with your neutrality. Strike deals with people you want to strike deals. But as per this, America will have a way of, stopping it. Every other person knows clearly any attempt to go beyond this is an attempt, to elicit something you can't control.
All right, I will get to our talk lines now and allow parliamentarians to call in and contribute to our conversation this morning. Our phone lines are officially open at 0916 0005945 or 0916 0004945. You could also send in messages to our WhatsApp line is 09128 945 945. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
It's very, very quite interesting. For me, I think that they have covered everything because we have been following what has been happening since that first US strike on the line, claiming that they have destroyed all their nuclear weapons. So just like Dr. Bat asked, I'm also asking, was it actually about the nuclear weapon that come about this US-Israel strike? So it's very, very unfortunate. And for me, even I would like just to say something, not that I'm trying to bring major sentiment there. This is that we claim that this is where Jesus Christ comes from and they line. So why are they the one trying to fight for the God of whosoever? Because that's where I'm seeing it. Yes, and the fact remains that it's just like Obasi also said, you are not beginning to understand that we have already moved on from the unipolar world order. Because if you think, why can the new other countries cannot bring about nuclear weapons, but others keep expanding their own, like Russia, UK, and so many other countries. So if you come to think, you see there's a hypocrite to it, you understand, and they are afraid. I think human existence is in dilemma, is unquestionable because of this nuclear order, and that was why they have international law. You remember, Putin is in international she issued an arrest of warrant from Putin, even in Benjamin Netanyahu. And which means that it means any country that these two people that issued this warrant, they came in, the other countries are meant to arrest them. Why haven't Trump arrested Putin and Israel, who have visited his country to why? So actually, I think he's trying to create a policy of dictatorship in the world. Nobody makes him that world leader and the world police. So he should allow a very sovereign country.
Alrighty, Senator. Alrighty, Senator, thank you for calling in. We'll go for a quick break. When we return, we'll take more of your calls. Please stay with us.
course, he's spoken extensively, but we are taking calls. Parliamentarians, join the conversation. 0916 0005945.
Or 0916 0004945. You could also send in messages to our WhatsApp line is 09128 945 945. Good morning.
Hello, Chuma. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr.
Good morning,
Narado.
sir.
I greet my brother, Dr. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Well played. Because the complicity of international politics is something that is difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, if you become emotional about it, you may not know that one missile can hit you. I'm saying this because some Nigerians tended to show emotions that they were happy that
Trump.
Iran was. And people are not even looking at the justice in the fact that Iran is being attacked. I'm not trying to exonerate Iran, but the way Donald Trump has carried on does not show that he deserves the medal peace, international medal peace that he's looking for. He's looking for the Nobel Peace Prize by all means, to the extent that he's even getting a single country to give him, an opposition leader in Venezuela to give him a Nobel Peace Prize. It doesn't show that he really wants peace in the world. The Middle East is a precarious region, whether we like it or not. And because we are Christians, we still want to justify the fact that Britain invaded the Middle East and gave Israel a position, you know, and nobody sees anything wrong in what Israel does. Well, you can argue on the other side that Israel wants to protect itself, you know, as a country, finding itself in the middle of antagonistic neighbors. That is the reality. The complicity we can go on, and I think Dr. Basai has done a justice on it. But the world needs to, if United Nations is united, Befela says there's nothing united inside United Nations.
Yeah.
If it's United Nations should have been able to call Donald Trump to order. But the Security Council is another world of its own. We are interested in what happened in Nigeria, and Nigeria will not be exempted from the effects of that war. And that's why I said, I continue to say, that everybody who knows how to pray for peace and act for peace should do so now, so that this war doesn't last till the end of March, because we all will pay the price. Even when government thinks that government can make money, government will also pay the price. But what I want to say, Dr. Bas, is that Nigeria can actually mitigate its effect on the citizens if Nigeria is well positioned to do that. OPEC should not stop us.
Okay.
OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, not petroleum producing countries. The international law on resource usage and resource control gives countries the rights to use their resources locally, insofar as it does not affect their neighbor.
Okay.
So to that extent, you know that the Nigerian PIA provides for discounts for local refiners. Insofar as it is not product that you refine and export. Nigeria can, if Nigeria has enough capacity to produce over OPEC quota, Nigeria can give the excess to the local refiners to refine and distribute to Nigerians, so that we can shield Nigerians from the effects of the price due to the war. But the tragedy, however, like Dr. Bata said, is that Nigeria has been struggling to meet 1.8 million barrels per day. We have not done, we are doing around 1.4, 1.5 million barrels per day without being able to ramp up. So where do we get the extra that we will give? Nigeria sold oil in advance, collected money in advance in terms of loan, and Nigeria is still paying for that. Therefore, we are in a bad position. We are in a bad situation. That's why Dangote that sources 80% of his crude from outside Nigeria will now have to adjust to international price. But Nigerians can call on our leaders to actually do something, because we cannot be exposed to the vagaries of the international crude price movement when this kind of things happen. Things can be done for Nigerians, because the sovereignty of the country cannot be for nothing. We cannot own the resources and still suffer what China that doesn't have oil suffers, and what other countries that don't have oil actually do suffer.
Okay.
Thank you very much and good morning.
All right, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chief.
Nigeria, listen to the cause. Many of us don't even understand. This war that is going on in Iran and France and Israel will affect us positively and negatively, depending on the fall back. It is like oil safety. Let us not pretend that we are not part of it. We are involved in it. Go and ask your good joy who are not. The World Trade Organization will be affected by this war going on. It was affected by Russian attack on Ukraine. The important thing for us to learn is that by climate change, the world order has changed dramatically. When Russia attacked Ukraine, why? Ukraine wanted to enter NATO, and Russia was NATO, and the backyard is not good enough, so he decided to deal with Ukraine. And this is the continuation of what this is the issue. And we should be very careful. The United Nations is no longer now a toothless bourgeois. Cannot do that. Was a time when you used to have United Nations Army. That's something like that. So every pig of a politician, which are vicious, manufactures tons and tons of military weapons, like North Korea. And if you tell them, they will teach you a sense. And everybody feels that it's affected. So you attack anybody you like, as long as you have respect. When the Hamas people went to Israel in October 2021, nobody raised issues, anything wrong. They kept quiet. Until Israel retaliated, they would turn and blame Israel for killing them. The world order, like the climate change, things are changing, and Nigeria should be prepared like another adjustment. Nigeria should now go home and think about how to start. If the oil increases, we will make benefit. But how does it go to us? That is what concerns us. All wars affect us. Let nobody think we are not involved. Like another said, the missile can hit you while you are analyzing who is right and wrong. This issue now in the country, and we should be prepared for it. Good morning.
All right, thank you so much, Chief Undoka, for calling in. We're still taking more calls. Hello, good morning. Hello. Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, Decency.
The two Eastern countries fighting. They will be telling us here that things will be going difficult. We have oil in Nigeria, so just give us build the refinery. This oil people of Nigeria, and you are telling us because of the fight in Ukraine the other time that to stop buying oil in 1,000. Now you are telling us because of the one in Iran or Iraq, whatever. That we are going to say a difficult time. But then let me just say, he that is already on the floor, pay no 4. We are already on the floor in Nigeria, here, we pay no 4. IS will go back buying cup of rice, 500 or 700, you get a cup of this 700. Or buy the store 1,000, we cannot see more than that. We are witness all the state. What has happened in Nigeria? People have been stolen, killing, dying in our bad roads. How many people were lost in the last month? Is it not, is it until they start shooting guns before we know there's a war here? The judge should probably fix their house, fix your home. Now all of them are fighting for 27. Not even thinking what tomorrow will be for the people of Nigeria. So I pity our leader, I pity all. I forget here. But for me, I say I no 4 because I'm already on the floor. Let's remain blessed. I remain.
Okay, Decency, thank you for calling in. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Listener, the Igbo is my name. I'm calling from Enugu. The fact of the matter is that we are not happy over the attack of America and Israel against Iran because globally we need peace. It should have been better with Georgia than war. We don't need war. War doesn't benefit anybody. As it concerns Nigeria, we just a pity, even if we are going to make more money from our oil, will our leaders use this more money we are going to make to give us more dividends of democracy? I am afraid. And if it brings inflation, hunger, and starvation, we are going to suffer it the most because there is already one in the country. So I am of the opinion that all of us should pray and ask God to intervene in this war so that it will not snowball into Third World War, because Nigerians are already at war of insecurity, war of inflation, war of hunger, war of starvation, and we cannot afford globally to.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Igwe Austin, for calling in. Hello, good morning. Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Boys from Nkomo Region Autonomous Community in Inyaba DC of Ebonyi State. Now I want to start by questioning: is it justifiable, the war between Israel, US, and Iraq, and Iran? Sorry. So having said that, I think what we should look into is the motive behind this war. Whether this will benefit the entire globe or for the selfish interest of the American president. Okay? Because we are just watching out the president of America in Nigeria. Okay? Having said that, I think if the United Nations is really a group that looks into the matter of our member states, I think it's a high time that they should forestall some of these crises in member nations. Because I think this is an agglomeration of states that are just there, for sitting purposes, and not for taking decisions about their member nations, right? So what I'm trying to say in essence is that America, who is estimating them? Those are in their own armament development, in their own mass destruction of weapon development. Who is estimating America? Okay, America is just trying to prove this megalomania.
All right. All right, I thank you for calling in. 0916 0005945. I could take this last call, then I'll take your messages on our WhatsApp line. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sabena.
I greet Yagas here and my friend Dr. West.
Good morning, sir.
Look, you don't, there have been counter accusations here and there. America accuses Iran of that Iran should not be allowed to produce nuclear weapons because they will use it against the island. That is, they will even use it against the world. Then, on the other hand, Iran definitely hates Israel. Let us not hide ourselves from it. If they, one of their former president or something of the Ahmad Jan or something, said if they allow it here Israel, sitting 1 second or something of that nature. So, America already, Israel is one of the reliable allies. They cannot hold and watch Hamas go Ebola. They believe that Iran, they are being trained in Iran. So these are counter-actions, here and there.
All right.
But the bottom line of it is, I have said it yesterday, we in Nigeria, we have radicals here. We have radicals here. I told you that yesterday. Our security agents should be up and do it. And make sure that we don't start losing life because of something that is not happening in Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sir Bernard, for calling in. We'll take messages here on our WhatsApp line. Okay, this one says it is not a case of whether Iran is sponsoring protests in Nigeria. They have the resources and have been using that to fund terrorism all over the world, like all over oil-rich Arab countries, namely Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE. Trump and Israel acted recklessly in starting the war in Iran anyway. They knew the consequences. Every part of the world will suffer. That is Imam Zomi who sent in. There's a message. Good morning, Yagazit Sharma and Dr. Basisine Tugarin writing from Winnie. The Iran, US, and Israel war will impact negatively on Nigerians, while if the government will impact negatively on Nigerians. Hence, the government, hence the opportunity the war has created. We will make more money, grow our foreign reserves, and also more fund available for state government. But the government should put strategic mechanism in place to make sure that the benefits from the oil sales, which we expected to surge, impact positively on the people. Okay, this one says President Donald Trump is a no-nonsense man from his first administration till now. Iran should have known better before his second coming. Iran had done more damage indirectly to US and Israel over the period of 47 years through their military proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Palestine. Okay, that's why Israel made sure those proxies were mortally destroyed before facing Iran and the US. So the Islamic regime can do not much to save themselves from the strongest force on earth. Iran commanders are all gone before the war starts. That's the power intelligence. They better negotiate now, okay? This one says, good morning, Chairman Yagazi. Thank you for talking about the ongoing war. I have been waiting to hear you discuss it, and I have been skeptical about the consequences of siding any of the countries involved, as in Nigeria. Peter from Abakaliki, okay? This one says, good morning, Yagazi and the Chairman. This is St. Louis from my war is not good. It's a breeze that blow no one good. However, two great countries, US and Israel in combination against Iran, is not a welcome development because it's going to affect not the big and small, but it will affect both the big and small in the country. If we're in faraway Nigeria, have started feeling, okay, we in faraway Nigeria are feeling the heat by hiking the petroleum product like PMS. What about the people in that country where the war is happening? Say no to war because it is a breeze that blow no one good. God bless Urban Radio. St. Louis from Mile. And the last message here says, Joseph from Enugu says, women removed their hijab. Christians were back in church last Sunday. I saw a video of people rejoicing on the streets of Iran, thanking the US for settling them free or for setting them free. Iranians are grateful. In everything in life, there must be a leader. Even on the human body, there is a leader. The US is a leader of the world. Having said that, what is happening in Iran is necessary and a big opportunity to secure lasting peace in the Middle East. Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism, having Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, who have been a thorn in peace in the Middle East. On Nigeria, it is your secrecy to protest Nigeria while Iranians are rejoicing all over the world. Good morning. Okay, this one says I've called all my relays living in the north to stay off road for now, or if possible to come back. Reaction or violence protest is not a big deal in some parts of this country. As for Trump and his bad behavior, I am not much interested because it can never add any value to my life. After all, we have a major problem in Nigeria. Good morning, Chijuki from Ugo. We get back to you, Dr. Chikizi Obasi, to react to some of the comments that have come up here. We saw Dr. Narado talked about OPEC can only detect on your quota for exporting but cannot detect on importation, and talked about diplomacy and the United Nations were united, they would have come in to wage on this. So what are your views generally about this? Let's get your concluding remarks.
Yeah, first, the issue, let me start with those that feel Iran and Israel has some problems. If we go back to the book of Ezra in the Bible, Cyrus the Great was a person that actually set Israelis or the Jewish people free from Babylonian captivity. That was about 500 something years before Christ came. So people who might not understand that Cyrus the Great was the king of Persia. Persia was the old name for Iran. So today modern Iran is Persia. You know, today modern Persia is Iran, and the modern Babylon is Iraq. So people may not understand this. Up to 1979, until the Islamic fundamentalists over Iran and the Jews have been living well. The problem is that those in leadership of RGC that have actually become fundamentalists who do not like the West, that even agree to leadership, and they don't recognize the Israel. That's an essential threat I mentioned. Now, for those who are afraid in Nigeria, like I said, the Sunnis are much more in number, than the people that would actually give trouble. So that's why you didn't see a rampant, widespread demonstration across the north. Then, as per the issue of OPEC, it's a tightrope. Actually, I know that technically OPEC will not allow you to do that. Technically, once you produce your quota, they expect you to sell that your quota even locally at international bench price mark. So it's not acceptable technically. However, OPEC has some loose guards, and sometimes these members will scale beyond the OPEC quota, and they don't. OPEC doesn't really have a strong hammer to navigate it. It's really a problem because I know Nigeria is finding it difficult to even meet up to the OPEC quota. So how do you produce the excess, and that which guys are you going to do that? So that becomes a problem. For those that look at America thinking that there's a yardstick we use in the whole world, I mean, I always maintain that many of us who studied from whatever school you think you studied, just have at the back of your mind there's something you don't know. Sorry, it's not insulting anybody, but until you sit down to question your knowledge and whatever you were told, you may not begin to understand that some of the things you are told were configured to suit a particular narrative. For so many of us, we grew up to begin to ask the question, how do you tell us that Mungo Park, discovered River Niger? And many of us came to the reality that that was the false knowledge. That's not true, But we all wrote that Mungo Park discovered River Niger. And every day we keep on understanding that. The clear picture here is very simple. From 1990, Netanyahu had been shouting that Iran is 1 month, 2 weeks, 6 weeks away from developing nuclear weapon. These fears are clear, understandable. There's an obvious threat of wiping them out, and we have seen Iran. It was sponsoring Hezbollah, PLO, and so on. Some terrorists that have been attacking America, Israel. So that is a clear thing. However, we should not take our eyes off the fact that world economy and world policy is actually playing its own role on it. And then a lot of things we hear may not be true. The issue of Iranian nuclear ammunition. I will tell you for free that Israel does not belong to an international organization that controls a nuclear weapon. I mean, you are saying that Iran has not subjected herself to IARS, something like that. But Israel does not subscribe to it, and so they have free liberty. Who says that it's only you that knows how to produce a nuclear weapon? Uranium enrichment that does not know how to control it, that knows how to control it. Who gave you which yardstick did you use to know who can control it or who not control it? How many kilometers is Iran away from Israel? Right. And who told you that dropping a bomb there it has no counterbalance force? North Korea has the nuclear weapon. Have they used it on anybody? Okay. They're not hungry. So that narrative is not for me for me, what I think is Nigeria should maintain non-aligned, yes. Nigeria should maintain that diplomatic, but let the president begin to see quickly how they will mitigate the effect. Because sure, if this war lasts beyond the next 3-4 days, the effect will definitely come down. And how would you navigate the excess money? How would Nigerians, benefit maximally from it? Not just coming in and giving it to the governors, and then probably people, what happened between 2000 and during Jonathan's era, during Okenjiwala shouting that let's save the money, comes back to haunt Nigeria. So I feel, by and large, it's going to affect us, but let the government do something so that they will mitigate the effect.
All right, and from what you just said, it's quite clear that this would leave Nigeria vulnerable to international market shocks and would impact directly on local fuel prices and supply as well. And if this is something they need to look into right now as it stands. Thank you so much, Dr. Basi, for your insightful analysis.
Thank you very
always
much.
a pleasure having you here to look at issues as this.
Thank you.
All right. And to you, our dear parliamentarians, thank you for your active participation. See you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. as we look at other critical issues of national interest. Until then, keep it as locked to 9.5 Urban Radio Enugu. I am Chioma Owasonga.
I am Legacy Obi-Wan Asaf. Good morning.
Good morning.
I guess they alluded.